My stepfather looked me dead in the eyes, stretched his arm across the doorframe, and said, "No one else needs to be here." My mother was alive, conscious. I could hear her voice through that door. And this man she'd married 6 years ago, was blocking me from getting to her. I'd driven 4 hours. I hadn't even put my bag down. My name is Maya. I'm 32 years old. And the woman in that hospital room is my mother, Diane, the person I called every single day, the person who raised me alone after my father died, the person I would do anything for. Gerald is 61. He came into our lives quietly. Charming at first. Patient. My mother loved him, so I tried to love him too. I tolerated the distance he slowly built between us. I told myself I was being paranoid. But standing in that hallway, staring at his arm across that door, something in me knew this wasn't about privacy. This wasn't about giving my mother rest. This was about keeping me out. I just didn't know why yet. Before we continue with this video, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Gerald let the door fall shut. I looked down at my phone. I'd been standing in that hallway for over an hour. I had no idea it was about to become 6. I didn't leave. I sat down on that hallway bench, and I waited. And while I waited, I started remembering things I'd spent years convincing myself didn't matter. 3 years ago, shortly after Gerald and my mother got married, Diane updated her will. I found out by accident. She mentioned it once, casually, like it was nothing. I asked one question. She changed the subject. I let her. I told myself, couples do that. It's normal. Don't make it weird. But sitting outside that door, all the things I'd filed under normal started looking different. Gerald was the one who handled all of my mother's medical paperwork. Gerald was the one who called me when she collapsed, but only after she'd already been admitted for 2 hours. Gerald was the one who requested the private room. Gerald was always there, always managing everything. And then I thought about the last real phone call I had alone with my mother. 6 months ago. Out of nowhere, she said, "I just want you to know I love you." No context. No reason. It felt strange then. It felt like a warning now. The door opened. A doctor stepped out and walked straight past me without making eye contact. I stood up. I stopped him. He hesitated, then said, "Mr. Gerald is listed as sole medical decision-maker." Sole medical decision-maker. I stood there and let those words land. My mother was alive, conscious, lying in that room 20 feet away from me, and I had zero legal authority to ask a single question about her condition. I walked back to Gerald's door and knocked. He opened it just wide enough to fill the frame. I kept my voice completely steady. I told him I wanted to see my mother. He said, "This isn't your decision." I looked at him for a long moment. Then I said, "Okay." I turned around and walked to the hospital lobby. Not to leave, to think. I called my mother's oldest friend, Patricia. She picked up on the second ring, and what she told me made my stomach drop. Diane had been talking about changing something. Something important. She wouldn't say what. But Patricia also mentioned that Gerald had recently been pushing Diane to consolidate her savings accounts. Diane thought it was practical. Patricia wasn't so sure. I hung up and called a family attorney. He asked me one question that stopped me cold. "Does your mother have any assets Gerald couldn't access without her signature, or her death?" "Yes. A property. Land inherited from my late father, left specifically to my mother, intended eventually for me." I went back upstairs. Gerald was at the window, phone pressed to his ear, voice low. He hadn't heard me come in. I caught 4 words before he turned around. "As soon as she signs." I hit record before he finished turning around. 15 seconds of audio. His voice. Those words. I got it all. Gerald looked startled when he saw me. Just for a second. Then the mask came back. He told me calmly that visiting hours were over and that I should go home and get some rest. I left. But I didn't rest. The next 2 days moved fast. My attorney filed for an emergency guardianship review. Patricia put her statement in writing. And when I formally requested a patient advocate through the hospital, what they found in my mother's chart made everything click into place. That morning, while I was sitting on that hallway bench, waiting, Gerald had Diane sign a document. It permanently transferred her medical power of attorney to him. The attending physician wasn't present. The only witness was Gerald himself. The patient advocate escalated it immediately. Gerald was informed that the document was under review and that an independent physician would need to assess my mother's capacity before anything else moved forward. That same evening, I finally got into the room alone with my mother. She grabbed my hand. Her eyes were exhausted but clear. "I didn't know what I was signing," she whispered. "He told me it was insurance paperwork." 3 days later, Gerald received a letter in the mail. I was standing close enough to watch his face as he opened it. He went completely pale. The letter was from the county probate court. Following my attorney's emergency filing and the hospital's internal report, a judge had ordered a formal review of every document Gerald had my mother sign in the past 18 months. The updated will, 2 account transfers, the medical power of attorney, all of it under scrutiny. The inherited property, my father's land, frozen immediately pending the outcome. Gerald's hands were shaking by the time he finished reading. I watched him, and I felt something I didn't expect. Not triumph, not satisfaction. Grief. Grief for every moment I second-guessed myself. For every red flag I filed away under "don't make it weird." For the slow, quiet distance Gerald had built between me and my mother, brick by brick, year by year, while I stood on the other side of it wondering what I'd done wrong. The audio recording, Patricia's statement, the flagged hospital document. Together, they gave the court enough to act. Within the week, Gerald was removed as medical decision-maker. He retained a lawyer, but the evidence was already assembled and the court was already moving. My mother was devastated, but she was clear-eyed. She asked me to help her find her own attorney. I already had one on the phone. Gerald moved his belongings out 6 weeks later. And on a Thursday morning, my mother and I sat together at her kitchen table, sunlight through the window, paperwork spread between us, and went through everything side by side. Every account, every document, every signature she hadn't understood. At some point she stopped, looked at me, and squeezed my hand. "I should have let you in sooner," she said. I didn't tell her it was okay, because the years it cost us weren't okay. But I stayed. And for now, that was enough.